got the listings lined up in a row. Josh brings the numbers, making dreams grow. First-time buyers stepping through the door. Keys to your castle, they're what we're here for. Navigating through the home buyer's maze. Educated steps in a world full of haze. The podcast is rolling with wisdom to share, helping you settle in your new lair. Navigating through the home buyer's maze. Educated steps in a world full of haze. The podcast is rolling with wisdom to share, helping you settle in your new lair. Jeb and Josh, they're paving the way. Dreams to reality, they make it day. From the first hello to the closing sign, your journey to home is looking divine. Down, the numbers make sense. Jeb shows the vision beyond the white fence. Teamwork like this is rare to find, helping you leave all your doubts behind. They talk about homes and talk about life, cutting through the stress and the buyer's strife. With every word they light up the spark, guiding you through when the road feels dark. Jeb and Josh, they're paving the way. Dreams to reality, they make it day. From the first hello to the closing sign, your journey to home is looking divine.
Welcome to another week of the Educated Homebuyer Live with Josh and myself, here to update you on what's happening in the economy, buying, selling, mortgage rates, all that good stuff to help you become educated homebuyers. We are streaming once again to Instagram as well as YouTube like we did last week. So if you're on either platform, if you have questions, make sure you put them in. Every single week, we like to start with charts, kind of go with, through what's happening out there, and then we take questions and hopefully deliver some value. Josh, welcome back.
We're just happy to be here.
Pre-Thanksgiving,
we're going to be getting ready to stuff our faces next week, get some golf in next week. Hopefully the rain is done. Hopefully for those of you not in California, you don't have to deal with cold or rain, and you can be thankful for the wonderful warm season.
There you go. Good stuff. It is a time to be thankful. And we appreciate you guys. We appreciate you guys showing up every single week. Been doing this now about 4 years, Josh, almost every Wednesday, for at least an hour. For a while we were doing 2 hours, but you guys have always showed up. I know many of you guys actually own property already, have purchased property, either through one of us. We've referred you, we've helped you out in some way, but yet you still continue to show up. And for that, we're grateful, we're appreciative, and we appreciate you being here. So Josh, let's start. So tonight's episode is the strongest buyer's market in over a decade is here. And where does that come from? That actually comes from our friends over at Redfin. So Redfin just put out an article that basically says that somewhere almost 37% of the market right now, there's 37% more buyers than there are sellers in the market as of October. And with that, they're talking about a really strong buyer's market. Anything you want to add to that, Mr. Lewis, before we look at that chart here?
Your mileage is going to vary. So if we look at that 36.8, so first of all, when they first started doing this, May was about the first time they released this. There are some serious problems with their statistical methodology of how they do this. But more importantly, their data doesn't go back all that far. So take this with a serious grain of salt. As we go forward, it's a good measure of seeing how things are changing month over month. But don't love the methodology, don't love the clickbait headlines, but it is what it is. And it's a good baseline to measure against as we go forward.
Yeah, and we're actually going to look at some markets here, right? We'll see that, like you said, so mileage is going to vary. So depending on where you're located, it's going to be a little bit different scenario, right? And if there's a lot of inventory, it's probably going to be a stronger buyer's market. Whereas if inventory is still on the lower end, part of the Northeast, parts of Southern California, depending on where you're located, it's still going to be a seller's market. Sellers are still going to have a little bit more leverage, but probably more balanced than anything else. But we always like to take a look at inventory supply because that's essentially what drives markets. This last week, we saw inventory nationwide drop from just over 842,000 homes to 839,000. Again, not a big drop, pretty much in line with what we expected. But we do continue or expect to see inventory continue to be pulled from the market as we move. Next week again is Thanksgiving. The majority of the United States celebrates that. And then you'll move into Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever you celebrate. And again, another period of time when people traditionally don't want people walking through their homes. And so if they don't have to sell, a lot of property comes off the market. And you can see year after year after year, when looking at this chart, the numbers from this point forward continue to dwindle through the remainder of the year until we hit, really probably February of next year. But we will continue to watch it and continue to update you as we go through that. So this is taking a look at active inventory in different markets out there. What I did is I put red boxes around those that are still down active inventory wise when compared to 2019. Why am I using 2019? 2019 was quote unquote a more normal market, right? That was when we didn't have the craziness of the pandemic, the craziness of super low rates. A lot of markets out there was still a seller's market. Inventory was still low in those markets, not like it is today, but still lower. So we've heard the inventories increase. We've heard that it's a buyer's market. Well, let's go back and look at 2019 and see what we're comparing to. So when we look at that, we got Albuquerque, Grand Rapids, Michigan, you got the state of Maryland, Raleigh, San Diego are some of the markets where inventory is still down when you're comparing it to those levels back in 2019. Whereas when you look year over year, inventory is probably up, right, in those markets. And there's a really low bar, but inventory is up. So we like to look at that 2019 just to get a better idea of what that means. Here in Orange County and Huntington Beach, Orange County inventory continuing to dwindle there as we move through the rest of the year. Again, seasonal, completely normal, but now sitting at 3,879 homes, down 4.61% week over week. And Huntington Beach actually saw a little uptick of 3.72% inventory. So even though Orange County's down, Huntington Beach ticked up a little bit, sitting at 242 homes. New listings, again, new listings are up. Not going to go through a lot of this stuff in detail. But again, looking at this chart, comparing it to 2019, comparing it to year over year, you can see a lot of markets are still down when comparing it to 2019. Not a lot to talk about here. Again, we're moving into that time of the year when things are slower. New listings are going to be slower. Completely normal to see what we're seeing out there in the market. Pending home sales are up year over year. Last year was kind of a dismal year with regard to the number of transactions. We're actually seeing an increase this year. And that's primarily because interest rates this time last year were actually higher than they are now. So you still have some buyer demand out there in the market. Inventory is being pulled out there. So being pulled off rather. So, you got multiple offer situations in some markets, whereas some markets it's a little bit easier to get offers accepted. This is a chart, Josh, that we get, I think, about once a month from, I believe, Calculated Risk sends this one out. Just shows months of inventory in different markets across the United States. I don't get too caught up in this sort of thing. Traditionally speaking, 6 months of inventory has kind of been said that, hey, once you reach 6 months, it's a buyer's market. I think that's kind of old school thinking. I think you can have less inventory than 6 months of inventory and it be a buyer's market in some of the markets out there. But for the most part, if you're sitting at 2-3 months of inventory, it's still relatively in favor of sellers for the most part. And again, going to depend on where you're located nationally.
So think about it, Jeb. That historical number, average 6 months, it assumes normal demand. When we look at there's, going to be 4 million sales this year, plus or minus, that's below normal demand. So it doesn't take as much supply when you have below normal demand to make it more of a buyer's market.
Well, and I think that's important to note, right? Everything we're looking at is from really low numbers baseline wise, right? So when you see year over year increases, it's like, okay, it increased, but is it really a big deal? Again, foreclosures, right? You see foreclosures. Oh, foreclosures are up. Okay, what are they up? Oh, 0.2%. Okay, last month they were up, 0.1%. It's like, what are we talking about here, guys? You need to understand the context of what's being discussed, when you're talking about some of these numbers. And the reality is it's all the baseline is one of the most important pieces to know where you're coming from, because without that, you don't really have a lot of detail. Price reduction sitting at 41.5%. So again, we've been moving flat for the last 2 to 3 months on price reductions. I would expect that would dwindle here as properties come off the market here. You'd see less of that because, again, those properties that aren't selling are probably going to be pulled from the market, and you just have less of a percentage of homes with price reductions. But again, for just talking about this, a price reduction is if the home's listed at $500,000 and you lower the price to $499,999, that is a price reduction, right? So it's important to understand not every home up here is some huge price drop, which is what a lot of people want you to believe. All right, Josh, first-time home buyers. New study came out yesterday, actually by the National Association of Realtors, that says now, last year, Josh, it was 38 years old. First-time home buyers, 38. National Association of Realtors this year is now saying 40 is the average age. Now, I didn't realize they did a survey in order to get these numbers, so take that with a grain of salt. But either way, they're saying 40 is the average age of the first-time home buyer. The move-up buyers, 59 or so there. And then repeat buyers, average age is 62. But they dug a little bit deeper, Josh. And the Federal Bank of New York did their own survey, and they're saying that it's 36-ish, 36.3 is the average age versus 40. Either way, it's a lot higher than it was 15, 20 years ago. And it's probably due to affordability, savings, all of the stuff that we talk about continuously.
Not just that. I mean, all of the above, right?
Sure.
But people are delaying life.
Sure.
Every phase of it, taking longer to finish college, taking longer to get married. I don't think taking longer to have children, although married people are taking longer to have children. Everything is just pushed out a little bit longer. Affordability absolutely plays a part here, but just sort of the natural flow of life. People are living longer and taking longer to do everything.
And that's okay. Nothing wrong with that. So if you don't own a house and you're 35 years old, don't think you're completely abnormal, right? It seems to be pretty normal, especially in today's market. So Josh, let's talk about what we're looking at here with regards to housing units.
So it's the number of privately owned housing units. So single family, condo owned by private citizens divided by the US population. And we see it's a very messy data line because it's been increasing, but that trend is down in terms of thousand, going back to this is probably the 60s. So when we look at that, supply is an issue, and this isn't a new issue. It's been decreasing over time and continues to get worse. So if we had built through this bubble in demand, we're definitely in a demand bubble right now, right? Jeb, less homes selling.
Absolutely.
So if we had built through that demand bubble like we did through the last one in 2007, 2008, you would be seeing, at least in terms of new construction, builders having to liquidate homes. But they've been very deliberate in how they build. Some of that's by choice, some of it's regulation, some of it's cost for building. So I just wanted to throw that in there and say that is a protection against a big downturn, in that there is still a big picture structural supply shortage. Jeb, we talk here every week, data. These folks probably get tired of hearing us talk about not having any data for the last 6-8 weeks. So we now have some insights into what we're going to have. So in the bottom half there, consumer price index, we will have CPI. Oh, what are you doing over there?
You're good.
We'll
press
have
button. There's new buttons on the screen. I was pressing them.
You just put. Yeah, you don't try to figure out what the button is doing by pushing it. It could be bad. They could be the nuke buttons. It could be any number of things.
That's right. Listen, blow us up, dude. Let's see what happens.
So September CPI is going to come out October 24th. October 25 is likely never to be published, just because there's not enough manpower for those 40 days, 45 days of lost manpower to recoup it. They'll incorporate as much as they can into the following report. But until we get to the November report, we're not really going to have current CPI. PCE, the Bureau of Economic Analysis, says they're working to publish updated release dates as soon as they're available. The Bureau of Labor Statistics came out and said for JOLTS, the September data has been canceled. Never going to see it. The October jobs report also canceled. Never going to see it. So we will get October jolts on December 9th. That is one day, Jeb, before the next Fed meeting. For the November jobs report, we're not going to get it until December 16th, 6 days after the Fed meeting. So they are not going to have any of the normal data that they rely on going into that to make the decision on whether to hike rates, cut rates, keep them the same.
Yeah, and let's talk about a second here, Josh, why that's important, right? So typically the data for job reports, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, CPI, PCE, all of that is what the Fed looks at to see what the economy is doing, looks at revisions, all of that stuff to kind of get a baseline of where the economy is, potentially where it's heading. And then they meet and make decisions based off that data. With a lack of data and some of the recent reports, the idea here behind the Fed is, hey, listen, we don't have enough, information in order to make an informed decision come December 10th. So at the moment, we're going to see the probability, but it looks like the potential of them doing an actual rate cut could be pretty low.
Absolutely. So this chart here, we talked about it last week. We only had the two big blocks there. It's a 4-week moving average of the ADP report of the number of jobs created. So last week it looked really, really bad. We were 11,000 and change jobs lost over the last 4 week per week over the last 4-week moving average. Corrected a little bit, but still losing jobs. So it's telling us we haven't had the jobs report, but ADP is saying we're definitely still seeing weakness in jobs. In terms of inflation, this is elevated 2.58. It's been here for what, 2-3 weeks now, but definitely elevated. And you see that trend over the last year, going back to the April-March time. Basically, before tariffs, we were on a nice path to low inflation, and post-tariff, as it's started to get impacting the figures, we're definitely seeing more inflation. So we also, Jeb, today got the minutes from the last Fed meeting. I pulled out some of the highlights here, highlights, lowlights, depending on how you see it. Policymakers were divided over support for that meeting's rate cut and whether a December cut would be appropriate. Many participants favored October's cut, though some among them said they would have supported no change. So it wasn't unanimous that they wanted to cut. Most participants judged further rate reductions would likely be appropriate over time, but several didn't think it was appropriate or necessary in December. Many participants suggested under their outlooks it would be appropriate to keep rates unchanged for the rest of the year. Several participants assessed a December rate cut could be appropriate if the economy evolved as expected. We didn't go through this, Jeb, but over the last, say, 10 days or so, this jives with exactly what all of the Fed speakers have been out in their public speeches of saying some of them are in favor of it, some of them aren't, definitely saying they want more data. So where are we at? Here's the probabilities. We are down to a 32% chance of a cut in December. And this is a little bit hard for you guys to read, but the red arrows, a month ago, we were at a 93% chance with a 0% chance of rates staying the same. The remaining chance was for either a half or even a larger than a 0.5% cut. So that dropped to last week, 62%, yesterday, 50%, and today, 32%. So it's pretty rapidly adjusting to the market is not currently thinking we're going to get a cut because of the lack of data, as Jeb talked about. This here is the candlestick chart showing sort of the technical analysis. Last week, we were trying to fight our way back down into the top of that down channel and just basically gave it up this week. So the red line and the yellow line kind of show this sideways trend. As long as we stay under that 416, 417 level, we're likely to trade sideways, with the bottom being about 407. But the jobs report tomorrow that we're going to get could move the market, but unlikely just because it's already so stale. But it could be a market mover. So it'll be interesting to see, what does that mean? Basically flat, almost flat over the last month, flat over the last week. This says slightly improved over yesterday, but we ended up a little bit worse on both treasuries and mortgage-backed securities. So it should be a little bit worse, but 6 3/8 for the best qualified borrowers on a conventional loan with 0 points, and the FHA and VA right in that 6% range, again, for the best qualified, highest credit score borrowers.
All right, Josh. So we've mentioned, I actually don't know if we mentioned it on here or not. We are doing a live workshop teaching you the process of buying a home. It's about a 90-minute, give or take a little bit, probably less than 90 minutes, online on December 9th. It'll start at 5:30 Pacific Standard Time. It'll run approximately to like 7 o'clock. So we did 2 of these last year, Josh. Out of those 2, 7 people out of those actually followed through, ended up buying homes, and are now homeowners because they went through the seminar, got the education necessary, and yeah, and congratulations to them. So if you're in the process or considering buying a home in 2026, it's kind of a no-brainer. Doesn't cost you anything. It's only educating you further. If you're here, you clearly want that. So there's a link there on it. theeducatedhomebuyer.com/workshop will get you in touch, or actually I'll take you to a form that you can fill out, just some basic information. I'm not going to, email bomb you, or we're not selling your information or any of that. It's literally to give you the confirmation to show up and the information that you'll need in order to be there. So we hope to see you there. And if you know anybody that's considering doing it, share it, right? That's how you can help us. Oftentimes you guys are asking, what can we do to help you? You guys do so much. You could share it with other people that are potentially interested in buying a home, and, just getting us in front of them. That's how we make a living, Josh. It's how we do what we do, is educate people.
The thing that I was going to say is, so we did the first one about 3 years ago, and I thought it was really good. When we did these last year, we went back, went through the curriculum, revised, edited, improved it even more, and we're doing the same right now. So it continues to evolve and get better. All of those folks last year that went through it and ended up successfully closing, great that they had they're now homeowners, and that's success. But what I can say is the process was a success for them, because it was so much smoother, simpler, easier, because they had spent 90 minutes hearing exactly what's going to come next, what they needed to do, what was expected of them, and what they were going to get. So I think it's highly valuable if you're thinking.
Yeah, and there's some big benefits to you if you actually attend it too. So I mean, you'll actually save money. You'll get money back. In fact, we'll pay you to be there. This is crazy enough. That's crazy, but it's the truth. So check it out if you're interested. Would love to have you show up and be there. So anyway, so how the show typically works, as we said, is we start with the charts. We've been through that. Now is an opportunity for you to get your questions answered, or you can just make derogatory comments at Josh and I, and we'll read them out loud, because that's what we do. We will read your negative comments.
We'll read mean tweets.
That'd be hilarious.
We could go and just read. What we should do, Jeb, is when we just read the comments on the Velocity Banking video, so you guys could all laugh at how dumb the people are who think there's magic to go, poof, my debt disappears.
Too funny. Absolutely funny. All right, Josh, I think we should start by talking about someone that you helped here tonight. They're closing. They signed loan docs today. They're closing tomorrow. Is that right?
Signed, just finished about an hour ago.
All right. I don't know if we're going to say a name, but we'll just
use his first name, Johnny. Johnny, if you're out there, we are proud of you. Went through the process. And again, very simple. He's been here watching for a long time. So when we went through it, he knew what to expect, got connected. We got, he's a veteran. So we got the VA loan approval done. Jeb got him connected with the realtor. He had some things lined up with his employer, got it all ducks in a row, and everything went very, very smoothly through the process because of the homework that he did. So congratulations to you and your wife. And tomorrow should be getting keys.
Fantastic. That's good news. So a success story, and grateful and appreciate the opportunity there. Yeah, be the next one. Be the next one. Reach out if we can be part of that. Yep.
As long as we're delivering good news. I am 99% sure that Marcus is here watching. Marcus asks questions, always in process. Just as we came on air here, his appraisal showed up. Underwriter hasn't reviewed it yet, but I looked at it, came in $14,000 above the purchase price, and as is, meaning no repair. So always good news, always a stress release to have the appraisal in, and especially to know that it appraised for more than what you're paying.
All right.
So if you're watching, Marcus,
good news
congrats.
Just good news. That's all we're doing. Let's see. Do we have a lot of questions here, Josh? I'm kind of looking through. You flagged some stuff. All right, let's talk about this. And I keep seeing it. We talked about it briefly last week. The question is, what do you think about this portable mortgage business? Laugh out loud. Joey, I think it could be fantastic if it were actually true, and if it could actually happen. Call me pessimistic, call me realistic, call me whatever. I don't think the current servicers, the current mortgage holders are going to allow a current transfer of a mortgage on a property to a new property. Now, do I think it could be something that happens on future loans, a change in the policies or whatever, the procedures or whatever going forward? If potentially, my understanding is that other countries have this in place and it is feasible and other countries do it. So if that's the case, I feel like it can be done. I just don't feel like it's going to be retroactive and go backwards for people that have 2% interest rates.
So the reason why the United States is the business center of the world is because of our legal system. There are flaws with our legal system. It is not perfect, but it is considered the best in the world. Part of that is contract law. Your mortgage, your deed of trust, these are contracts. So they can't be retroactively changed. So we talk about we're always fighting the last war. Well, this war right now is lock-in, people being locked in with these ultra low interest rates. They would love to move and take them, and there's societal benefits to that, but to the lender, there's not a benefit. When you have a 2% interest rate and current rates are 5, 6, 7%, they want you to pay that off so they can go lend it out at a higher rate. So this would be a bad thing for lenders. So it again would have to be one of these subsidies, not a dollar subsidy, but something that the government enforces as part of their implied guarantee of Fannie and Freddie and direct guarantee of FHA, VA. Would there be a benefit? There would be a benefit to buyers, not so much a benefit to the lenders. It's a very major change. If we go back to 1983, prior to that, loans weren't due on sale. So we had people just assuming everyone else's loan, taking a loan subject to that current financing. So that's why we have due on sale clauses. All this stuff, contract law, it's great to make a headline, to step to a podium or hop on Truth Social and throw a wonderful idea out there. Making it actually happen in the real world is much different than that.
All right, good stuff. Quick question here. Somebody popped up and just asked, yeah, but is it the strongest buyer's market in coastal Orange County? And the answer is depends. Depends on what price point you're at. In the price point that I typically operate, under 2 million is where the majority of my transactions happen. Still relatively competitive out there. I mean, I've put in a couple offers, multiple offer situations. Things are still, we just got an offer accepted. It was a multiple offer situation here in Huntington Beach. So yeah, I mean, it's, I think it depends on the type of property and where it's priced originally to start. But for the most part, it's still favoring sellers in that regard. Now, luxury, I talked to a buddy of mine who does high-end luxury, 15, 20 million plus homes. And he's like, it's dead. It's like crickets in that price point. And I asked him, why do you think? He's like, unsure, right? Is it time of the year? Is it, people watching the stock market? Is it, just unsure, people unsure about what's going to happen. And typically that money is smarter money in many ways. You don't get to a $15, $20 million house by making a lot of mistakes. Or if you do, you made a lot of good things on top of that.
In this regard, it's really different. If you're buying a $15 million house, you're not buying shelter. You're buying top of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I'm showing everyone what I've accomplished and what I have. I'm going to host and entertain. I worked for a guy who loves to pass himself off as a billionaire. He's not. He's only about half of that, poor fella. But his house was not. It was nothing like my house. The whole thing was designed for entertaining. And 4 or 5 times a year, he'd have a party with 400 or 500 people at his house. So different animals.
Hey, listen, by all means, flaunt it if you got it. Let's go. Let's go, Josh.
Well, Jeb, here's the good part. So all of the people we gave the good news to, Johnny is here. He says, that's me. And he says, thank you. And he said, no, thank you, Johnny. Brian Murphy says, congrats. Johnny follows up with, took less than 2 months. Thank both of you so much. It was our pleasure. We appreciate you showing up here, patronizing the show and giving us an opportunity. And I didn't realize we got 2 Curtises in here. Melissa, his wife, we got the whole pictures of the family. We got the whole thing here. They're all here and supporting. And Marcus, as suspected, is here and watching. And says, great news. Thank you. I like this. If we could just no phone calls, just once a week, everyone tunes into a YouTube live and we can give all the updates and all the good news at once.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Aurelius says, always appreciate the great info. So again, appreciate you being here. Jay Homeboy, if paying off a mortgage is the main goal, why would there be a benefit to refinance beyond the current maturity date? So Josh, a lot of people, when they refinance, right, they've got a loan, it's a higher interest rates come down. They've been paying on that higher rate for say 2 years. They now owe 28 years on their 30-year fixed loan. But when they go to refinance it rather, a lot of those people end back up in a 30-year term. Why is that?
So here's what, because they like the lower payment. And I'll give the example. Here's sort of the flip side of someone whose goal was to pay it off as quickly as possible. A viewer of the show, a listener. We didn't do the loan. They were in Georgia, and during COVID, they did a 30-year refinance to like 3.25%. 6 months later, their loan officer calls them and says, "Hey, I can get you 2.125 on a 15-year. You want to do it?" They looked at it and they go, "That payment's awesome. We can do that. We're not going to be hardly paying any interest." Well, about a year and a half later, the husband had lost his job and they could no longer afford that payment. So they tried as long as they could while he's looking for jobs, ran up a bunch of credit cards. So now they needed to get to a 30-year term, needed to consolidate the credit cards, but rates weren't 3.25 like it was on their 30-year. Rates were now 5.5. And I think they ended up doing a 5.5% 30-year refinance and ending up in a worse place than where they were before COVID. So that's kind of your worst case scenario. So why? Why would someone whose goal is just like theirs to pay it off as soon as possible take a longer term? Take the 30-year, even if you only have 27 or 26 or 25 years remaining on that loan. And what you can do with that is I don't have to make that payment. I can look at the 15-year amortization, the 20-year amortization, and every month, if I have discipline, I can voluntarily make that payment. I have a lower rate of interest. I can make whatever payment to amortize over any period of time I want. But if someone loses a job, someone gets hurt, someone runs up a bunch of credit card debt, we don't have an issue of where they have to go back and ask for permission to get the equity out of their house.
Good stuff. Is that your computer over there beeping, making
It
noises?
is. And I'm looking, trying to figure out I'm going to mute it so we don't have to deal with that
There we go. Good stuff.
Galaga or Pac-Man noises going on here in the background.
All right. We got what? Toll Traveler just says went under contract to South Austin on a new build. Builder has slashed $110,000 off the original price since March and has covered over half of the closing costs. So congrats to you on that. Good stuff. It's all about finding the right opportunity at the right time. So happy for you. Happy for you and appreciate you being here and give us a little feedback. So right now, if you have questions, is the time to put them in. I don't see YouTube. You can also jump in here with questions. Not YouTube. The YouTubers are putting in questions. The Instagrammers, if you have questions, drop them in the comments and I'll say them out loud and hopefully get you some answers if you have them.
So Jeb, miscellaneous of the whatever has a good one here. And this is in keeping with our theme. You have a listing that has a trust issue. I have a refinance that has a trust issue. Bronson, a viewer who is a trust attorney that we helped with his purchase and his refi last year, has been very valuable to us of being able to walk through some of that. So a question on holding title. The living trust is listed as owner number 1 on the deed, and the lender required my name as trustee to be listed as owner number 2. I would like to get rid of my name for privacy. Some lenders do allow the trust to be the only entity on the deed. Not only do some lenders allow it, I've never heard of having your personal name on there.
Sure.
You're going to sign as the trustee for the trust, and you are liable. You are signing the note as an individual. You're responsible for the debt, but the property owner is the trust. So a little bizarre that would have happened. Not sure who, what, why, when, how. But you ever seen that, Jeb?
I have not. But it should be pretty easy to get corrected. I mean, you would just get a grant deed, changing the title from the trust and you over to the trust. And at that point, the lender won't really even know what's going on. But here's the thing though, is that your name is forever associated with that property, right? It was on title.
It's in the chain of title.
It's not going to disappear. So from a privacy standpoint, yes, I mean, it might not show on the actual, tax records or whatever, if somebody wanted to pull them up and potentially see the name. But if somebody wanted to pull a title report or had the ability to do that, then that information would still be there. So just for some thought there, food for thought. But here's the thing, somebody asked a question not that long ago, and like, what's one of the most important things you can do once closing on your house? And we had a couple different answers, but like for me, putting your property in a trust is very, very important. And I want to say why. I mean, just in case something happens is the most important piece, right? If you have anybody that's important to you in your life and you don't want them to have to deal with a bunch of bullshit once you pass away, or if you pass away, the trust takes care of a lot of that. Obviously, you got to do the work and get the things in the trust, but that's the important piece. But here's an issue. I mean, a perfect example. I have somebody that reached out to me. Property, the owner passed away, left the property, or they thought they left the property in a trust to the heir, if you will, or not even to the heir, to a trustee. But essentially, the two beneficiaries were the disabled kids in this situation. So they were going to benefit here. They live in a home, they have medical care, Social Security pays for the medical home, but all of the care and that sort of thing isn't really covered. And so they need cash to do that. Well, selling that property, the cash was going to go from there into a trust set up for those kids and was going to pay for their medical expenses going forward. The issue is they've passed away. The property is not in the trust, and the trustee who is controlling the trust doesn't have the proceeds, or the funds rather, to hire an attorney and pay a retainer to appeal to court to try to get it into a trust. So it's this whole drawn out thing that could have been avoided had this been done correctly from the start.
Done correctly is the important part, Jeb, because you have the quitclaim. The quitclaim was signed and notarized. It was never recorded. But the fact that it was never recorded is the issue that we have. My refinance that we're doing the same situation, trust, and it didn't show up in the chain of title because they recorded it kind of funky. Title was actually able to do some research and found the deed. So we're okay. We're going to avoid the situation that you're avoiding. But it's shocking when we come to find out it was a financial advisor that put the trust together for them, not an attorney. And it doesn't need to be an attorney. This isn't like a contract. I mean, it's done right or it's not. Jeb, you did your own. You can go do them on LegalZoom. It's one of those things where get the best representation you can afford and make sure you understand what is happening, because it's not as simple as just fill in the blanks and you get all of the protections.
Yeah. I mean, just for transparency, I paid the first one I paid $4,000 to do, and that trust essentially went away. And so the second time, kind of had an idea of what I was doing by looking at the old one and figuring it out. But you should hire somebody. You should hire somebody that knows what they're doing, especially if you don't know what's going on, in order to make that happen. And let's just hope that, what I've done is actually suffices, if something happens there. But a couple of questions here, Josh. First one, let's see here. Well, it says, what are your thoughts on property taxes? Central Appraisal District in Texas says properties overvalued, and they're going to buy a second investment property with VA. The second part of your answer is easy. You cannot buy an investment property with a VA loan. That's only a primary home. So that takes that question out.
Jeb, YouTubers like yourself are responsible for this because they put out the headline and the thumbnail of how to do it. So there's a backwards way of doing it. You cannot buy anything as an investment property if you have enough entitlement remaining, which, if I remember, you're actually buying at a fairly high price point. You can have secondary entitlement where you could go buy another primary residence and convert this to a rental. Nothing prevents it from being a rental. And even once it becomes a rental, you can do an IRL on a rental that you bought correctly. So there's some nuances to it, but you cannot buy it straight up using the VA financing with anything other than the intent to occupy that property at closing.
I'm not sure I understand the first part of the question, Josh. Do you?
I think he's just asking if properties are overvalued in the Central Appraisal District in Texas. And really, there's so many different areas. We don't have enough experience. We do a bunch of business in Texas, but Texas is a country. It's not as small as a lot of these.
Everything's bigger in Texas, Josh.
Everything's bigger. So Cisco,
even the taxes.
Cisco's following up with another question. It says, so ChatGPT can write me a trust. I will bet you it could. I don't know that it should. Jeb and I use chat a lot, and the most humorous videos you could ever have would be our rants of losing our minds. Jeb, I was on a call and I thought Jeb was going to come in and kill me today, and he was just mad at GPT because it lost the ability to do something it had done 1,000 times. So I have a
question. I asked this on Instagram today, and I would like the viewers to watch now. There's 60 plus of you on here. Let me know in the chat. Do you talk nice to your chat if they do something wrong, or are you mean to it? Because there's a belief that if you're too nice, it will take advantage of you and not do the things you ask. Whereas if you're mean, it thinks you're being serious and wants to give you the information that you're trying to get so that you will be nicer. And so I want to know, are you nice or are you mean? I'm nice 99% of the time. 1% of the time, I kind of lose it on it.
80-20. You got to let them know. You got to
Let me
keep a
know in the
strong
chat
hand.
what you how you handle it. I'd love to
Also,
know your thoughts.
Jeb, you can actually also try. You can tell it. My boss is going to kill me if you don't get this
I've tried
right.
that today.
And it
Josh,
starts
I
to
used that
understand.
one today.
It understands the stakes are a little higher. This isn't just. I mean, I'm going to get
And
murdered if you don't care for
it did
me.
not work. It did not work
Okay.
on that one. Let's go to this. This is a common question, kind of an all around, not the exact question, but something like this. Says, does the trust protect you while you're
Alive.
or is that only for an LLC? A trust, basically, it can protect you while you're alive. I mean, it's there. It just depends on what you're trying to do with the trust, right? But the question that I wanted to ask is, people believe that they could put their properties in an LLC. That's where I was going with this whole thing. And that if they get sued or something else, that their property's protected. Here's the problem, is that's only the case, or this is my understanding, that's only the case if you've completely separated yourself from that property entirely, and there's no commingling of any sort of funds going in and out of any LLC or any bank account that's associated with that LLC. It truly has to be a separate entity entirely that owns that property. And that way you get protected. And what a lot of people believe is, hey, I'm just going to open an LLC. It's going to own the property, and then I'm going to fund that LLC with money from my checking or savings account, or hey, don't have the money here this month, I'm going to transfer some money. At that point, everything's gone. All the protection, in my understanding, is gone at that point. So if you're ever using an LLC for that sort of protection, just make sure you understand why you're getting it and how to actually protect yourself from potential recourse if something like that comes up, because there's a lot of videos out there on the internet that you have to own your property in an LLC. Every property should be in an LLC, so on and so forth. And here, I know a lot of successful people that own a lot of real estate, and some of them have LLCs, some of them don't. So,
an important thing, Jeb, we talked about the due on sale clause earlier. A trust is excluded from the due on sale clause. So Fannie, Freddie, FHA, VA, USDA, they're not going to lend to an LLC. They will allow lending to a trust. Or you can put the property into a trust later on, and that does not trigger the due on sale. LLC, moving it into an entity, can trigger the due on sale. I've never heard of it happening, but I don't think you have the same legal protections as you do moving it into a trust.
There you go. Hopefully that's helpful. People in here saying you got to talk mean to it, Josh. Got to talk mean to GPT.
Gotta let it know who's boss.
Yeah, you got to know. That's according to the experts. Who are the experts? Who's the expert at this point on GPT? I want to talk.
It's not us. We sometimes feel like we are, but then the next day it shows us who's boss.
But the best part is, Josh, our lives are so much easier just in just minuscule tasks that we do all the time, that it's elevated life so much in that regard. But yet when it messes up, I just wish it wasn't even there. I never found it.
Yeah, 100%. Jonathan has a really good question. How much higher are the rates for a second home loan? So prior to a couple of years ago, second home was priced exactly like a primary residence under Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. You did have to put 10% down versus 3 to 5% that were options for primary residence. But under the Biden administration in early 2023, when they changed the loan level price adjustments, they brought them in line with an investment property. So you're going to be paying the same rate that you would on an investment property. You can still do that 10% down, but no one would, because it's like a 4.5 point add-on. So what would be 0 points for anyone else would be 4.5 points for someone buying a second home. So the reality is, people putting bigger down payments, doing portfolio loans, far more common than Fannie Freddie stuff. So under the current FHFA, Bill Pulte, I don't know if you saw, Jeb, they put a very, very bad article about him in the Wall Street Journal. Said very mean things, that he is not a good person. But one great idea that he has is fixing the craziness of the loan level price adjustments, and second homes would be a key start to that. I don't know that we need second homes to be priced exactly like a primary, but they certainly don't need to be priced like an investment. And those LLPAs on investments are bonkers also. They both need to be reduced significantly. We can say there's additional risk in second homes and investment properties, so it should be priced a little different. But the disparity right now for a 20-25% down between owner occ, second home investment is bonkers.
All right, there you go. Josh's take on Bill Pulte and LLPAs, if you were wondering.
That was the Wall Street Journal's take. They're the ones that said he's a bad person.
No, but you just, anyhow. All right, guys, questions. If you have questions, now is the time to throw them in so that we can answer them. Josh.
While we're waiting for a couple of questions,
Yeah.
let's throw this up here. So Manny Fernandez says, Josh, my wife and I really appreciated your insight and knowledge during our discovery call. My wife and I are excited to work with you both next year. I'm not putting this up here to pat myself on the back, putting this up here to say, I think the way Manny is doing this is 100% correct. They have a timeline. He's going from New Mexico to Florida at a certain point next year. They are getting all of their ducks in a row. So when the time comes and it's go time to find the right property, we're just connecting dots. We have a complete file sitting here ready to go. So what does that mean if it's March before he buys, which it likely is, March, April, May? We're going to get updated pay stubs. We're going to get a W-2. We're going to get updated bank statements, but really nothing in there changes. We already know how we're structuring the loan. Rates are going to change between now and then. Hopefully they're a little bit better. So it is never too early, and they're a perfect example of never too early to start that conversation. And if you're thinking about buying and you don't want to buy until June of next year, I've talked to 3 different people this week with leases up sometime late spring, early summer. And they all walked away from the call going, hey, this is great. I feel a lot better now. And we have a timeline of exactly for each of them when we're going to start. There's an appointment on my calendar that I'm going to call on this date, and we're going to pick it up and start going through that. But where I was going with that, Jeb, is taking it back to the workshop that we're doing here on December 9th. I think that is sort of the lowest risk, lowest pressure level that you can get. You show up for 90 minutes, watch this video. You're going to get almost all of your questions answered. We're going to do a Q&A at the end of that that's more tailored to first-time buyers and exactly what that process looks like. But if you are thinking about buying anytime in 2026, I think it is one of the best investments of time you can make because it's 100% free. So theeducatedhomebuyer.com/workshop, take you right to the registration. If you're wondering, what are we going to cover? What are we going to talk about? Whole page there with all of the details of everything that you're going to learn.
Good stuff. Josh, you know what? This is a reminder. I'm saying this out loud so you can remind me. We need to see if there's a way to format Instagram that we're streaming where we can get the question on the screen without it being over my head. I'm completely okay with people not seeing me, but it's like a bit
it's like a
weird
mask
if they show up there and they can only see from the neck down. I actually have to get down here in
That's
order
what we
for it
need
to
to
work,
do.
which is weird. I mean, I could lower my chair
Just
way
take the
down.
tripod up like 2 feet.
So we'll see. But this is a reminder to see if we can actually set our own format on that thing to see where the know where the question's going to go. Because it'd be ideal if it was right in the middle, right here.
Yeah. And you would think they would be wise enough to do that, but apparently not.
But it's taken them a long time. We're still not even streaming in 4K here, Josh. I mean, whereas Riverside got it, we've had it for years. So anyway,
Jeb, the irony here, miscellaneous of the whatever follows up and says it's Pulte mortgage that required the trustee to his name to be on the deed. So maybe the Wall Street Journal was right. Maybe that's why they wrote bad articles about him.
Yeah, good stuff. All right, question here. When comparing lenders, what's the biggest mistake home buyers make that ends up costing them thousands of dollars without realizing it, Josh? Just one. Give me one mistake, the biggest mistake that home buyers make.
Focusing only on interest rate. I had a conversation with a listener yesterday in Florida. He's already talked to like 5 different lenders. And some people are capable of doing this. He's a smart guy. So some people are capable of doing this and kind of navigating the process. Most people get really confused and they end up going with either the person who promises them the lowest rate or that is the best salesperson, whatever that means to you. Most reputable lenders, so the gentleman I talked to yesterday, I said, hey, most reputable lenders are going to be in a very narrow range of interest rates, very narrow range of fees. Lenders only control your box A, possibly a couple of the items in box B. That's really what you're looking at. What's my interest rate? What do the fees in box A and box B look like for you? And with that, if you're saying I'm going to make 5, 6, 7 calls and go with the lowest cost provider, you are setting yourself up for misery. 80% or more of the people in this industry are idiots and do not know what they're doing. Many of the ones that do know what they're doing don't have a defined process. You would be shocked. We have 150 loan officers at our company. We have a loan officer thread in there, in Teams and in email. And you can see that many of these people work about 2-3 hours a day, or they work from 5 to 9 p.m. because they were doing another job during the day. It's a really interesting industry, and all lenders are not the same. And then even to the point of spoke to someone, we do a lot of loans for law enforcement, and they had spoke to their credit union, the police credit union, and they're like, you can't believe how incompetent they are. So there's more to it, far more to it than interest rate. You need a competitive interest rate. You need reasonable fees. You deserve that, but you also deserve an awesome process with someone that knows their shit and is going to walk you through the process to get you the best loan.
All right. If you need to get in touch with Josh, that link at the bottom there, jebsmith.net/start will get you in touch with Mr. Lewis. You can have that conversation and see where it goes.
I am offended. I've been offended by the most recent comment. I thought Dixieland and I were friends. You go ahead and read that, Jeb.
Not a fan of people drinking out of them sippy cups. Happy to see you took the cover off before you took a drink, Jeb. Sippy cups are for toddlers, not for grown-ass men. Well,
listen, Dixieland, that is called a straw. That is not a sippy cup.
That's a sippy cup, Josh.
When you go through the In-N-Out drive-through or whatever they have in Dixieland, do you pop the top off and drink out of it like a cup?
Absolutely. That's what a man does.
This is a straw. This is a straw.
Real men don't use straws, dude. It creates those little wrinkles around your lips. That's what the girls say. You can't suck on a straw, Josh. I sent my wife something. It was some absurd thing that now that they.
I thought you were going to say some obscene
bottles.
thing. Like, don't tell us about the obscene thing.
Some absurd thing that goes on your water bottle now that you drink out of, so you don't make the sucky face with your lips. And I'm like, what are we doing? Have you lost?
Well, you don't want your wife looking like a smoker by the time she's 55.
God. I also don't want her looking like a ridiculous either, drinking out of whatever that thing was that I don't remember at this point. But anyhow, another question. Do you really think
good luck with this one, Jeb?
Let's see here. I'm just reading. Do you really think this is the best talking to market thing? I'm missing the jobs information that will lead to the recession.
I'm not sure what the question is, other than it seems like this person is convinced that we have a recession coming because the jobs data is terrible. The jobs data is weakening 100%. We cover the charts here. So I don't know, maybe you missed the beginning of the show or you're new here, but we go through the data every week, and the jobs data has absolutely been weakening. One of the things, Guy Berger, one of the best trackers of that data, follow his Substack, subscribe. It's very, very good data. He goes into it and he says, I am less concerned about weak job creation than I have ever been, just because both the demographics and the immigration issue, we don't need as many jobs to keep unemployment from shooting higher. But we're coming off a period of very, very good employment for a very long extended period of time. It is worsening and likely to get worse from here. And it wouldn't shock me if it was worse than what people, but there are people who are sitting home watching their doom and gloom YouTube videos that are promising them that home prices are going to drop 50% and they're going to be the genius that gets in at a huge discount. And it just doesn't work that way. In the GFC, Jeb, what did we get? 11, 12% unemployment?
Yeah, 12.
So like we are so far from that. And people think, well, then if we get there, then the unemployment is going to lead to people losing their homes. 40% of homeowners own their home free and clear. They don't need a job because they don't have to pay a mortgage. The 60% that have it is like an average loan to value of about 50%. We show the charts all the time of what the average interest rate is. So are there people out there who will lose their job, who bought late, who have a high interest rate, who can't afford it, who either have to sell or may end up in foreclosure? Yeah, there are, but not at scale where there's going to be some mass change to the market. The market has already changed and it will change going forward. But anyone promising you're getting a home for 50% off, I'm sorry, it's not going to happen.
There you go. I don't think I can add much to that. Let's see here. Josh, somebody got offered 5.99% on a cash out refinance for an investment loan, paying 2 points, 70% loan to value. Is this average rates with lenders? I would say that seems low for a cash out refi on an investment property, even with 2 points, but you tell me. Is that not?
Yeah, there are so many other details in here. And whenever I see this quote, I say, so you wanted cash out. Did you want cash out for you and then 2 points for the lender? Because most people are going to say no. So if you said, hey, this is the only way I can get my cash out and make the payment where I want it to be is to use some of that cash out to buy the points, that's fine. You are the arbiter of whether it makes sense to pay points for you in your life with your property, your plans, and your qualifications. But when you call a lender and the first quote they come back to you is you paying points, I don't have any borrowers that want to pay points. Some of them decide to because it's the best decision. There's an anomaly in the rate sheet. Had a borrower locked today that decided to pay half of a point because it was a 0.5% lower to pay a half of a point. That's a pretty big difference. So from that perspective, this to me is a giant red flag. If you're talking to a call center lender that just comes out the booth and goes, here, give me 2 points of your equity, I'm going to get you an amazing rate. 2%, 2 points, 5.99 is probably possible at a 70 LTV with a very good credit score. I just ask, why are we paying the points? Why aren't we taking 6.5, 6.625 and doing it 0 points?
There you go. Somebody asked the question, why is it difficult to find rate sheets online to compare lenders? And that's because they don't exist. There's no rate sheets online for the retail side of things, right? There's a wholesale rate sheet, but that's for brokers to see. There's not really anything out there for you as a buyer to see. And that's primarily because, if I'm being honest, unless you're in the business, you don't understand how to read it. There's way too many things going on in order to be able to calculate it correctly and actually know what the interest rate is. And if you did know how to calculate it, you would probably have access to the rate sheets. Now, that's not derogatory. It's just the reality. So what I would say is talk to a broker, let the broker run numbers and compare it on your behalf and show you what your options are. And then you'll know exactly where you stand. So
Jeb,
that's the easy answer.
I'm going back to this. Dixieland's confused. He says, it's all good. We're still friends. That's not for you to decide. It's not for you to decide if we're still friends.
Oh, wow. I feel animosity here, Josh.
I'm just
Sippy
saying.
Cup. I mean, the sippy cup thing really threw you off.
You can't say bad things to your friends and still be friends.
There you go. Are the loan level price adjustments the same across lenders, Josh?
All lenders that are doing Fannie Freddie loans, yes, because those are set by Fannie and Freddie and the FHFA. FHA and VA and USDA technically don't have loan level price adjustments. There's not a sheet that you would go and look at, but in the real world, lenders do price them differently. There's far less tiers, far less add-ons. So that pricing can vary more out in the wild, but Fannie Freddie, the loan level price adjustments are dictated by the government.
There you go. Good stuff. I think I mentioned it earlier in the show, but I'm going to throw it up here again. Mr. Lewis and I are doing a home buyer webinar, a workshop rather, on December 9th at 5:30 Pacific Standard Time. It is on basically Zoom. It's a Zoom-like platform. Where you join in. Josh and I walk you through what it looks like to buy a home in 2026. We're going to talk about everything from the real estate side to the mortgage side to finding an agent to what the process looks like. Essentially, the details you need to kind of arm yourself with in order to be successful. And you'll leave with some information in hand, some credits, some things that will actually benefit you if you do potentially buy a home. So there's a link there, theeducatedhomebuyer.com/workshop, that will take you to a page that will cover everything that we're going to cover in that workshop. And you register, you show up, and if you show up, you actually get the benefits that we discussed there, and you walk away educated. It's a good use of time. You know, time is the only thing that we can control. And what I would say is, if you're going to buy a home, you should know what that process looks like. And if you don't, you know, you could set yourself up for disaster, failure. So good place to start as you move into 2026, December 9th. And again, the information will be good, you know, for months. So even if you don't buy a home for March, April, May, you'll have access to the recording. You'll know exactly what's going on so that you're good to go. Mr. Lewis, anything you want to add on that?
No, I just really, most people don't do enough research and go into it. So we've condensed, I've done this 30 years. Jeb is a couple of years younger than me, but closing in on 25 plus yourself. So we got 55 years of experience and 5+ years of these conversations with you guys of knowing what's on your mind, what you're thinking, what you want to know, what you need to know. 65% of my clientele is first-time buyers. So we have a pretty good handle on what's running through your head and what you need to know to make that as smooth and stress-free a process as possible.
All right, guys, until next week, make sure you buy right, borrow smart, build wealth. Adios.
Amigos.